Peace, family. This is the Drapetomaniac Podcast, and I'm Ayapo Yapa, the HDIC, that is, the head Drapetomaniac in charge, and I'm here to have conversations on how to get off this plantation.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to make sure that you listeners are listening to the Drapetomaniac Podcast on doayamedia.com. You are, right?
What is nihilism? Basically, it is cynicism on steroids. In philosophy, nihilism is an extreme skepticism maintaining that nothing in this world has real existence. Admittedly, I'm not fully nihilistic in all my thinking on different matters. However, when it comes to the political system in this country and the system of white supremacy which it upholds, I am a complete nihilist. I regularly point out that as black people, we need to take a good hard look at what is presently happening both globally and specifically in this country in terms of the quote-unquote elites and the bought and paid for puppets that they've placed in positions of power and authority. My point was and is that they have shown that they have absolutely no regard for the common person, and on the contrary, exhibit a thinly veiled contempt for the common person. I pointed out, or one of my YouTube videos, the one called Stay Out of Our Space, that the elitists always have a plan, or always have had a plan, for turning everyone into their slaves and oppressing everyone who is not part of their group. Part of that strategy was to hammer black people constantly, to oppress, abuse, and marginalize us, and to steal everything from us. And I have to laugh when I hear white people talking about how what is being taken from them by the government, and how they're being locked up, in this system and marginalized and so on. And the things that I hear them complaining about are exactly the same things that have happened to black people and have left us in the situation that we're in presently. I want to add, though, that nothing can ever equal the unbridled brutality, viciousness, and inhumanity that has happened to our people in this country. But presently, I'm just referring to the trap itself. That was always the end game. They just wanted to get the apparatus in place first, and I'm talking about the elitists, wanted to get the apparatus in place first, and they did that by letting the average white person think that only black people were going to suffer. And so, as they saw black people suffering, they did absolutely nothing to stop it. And even now, the face of the so-called pandemic is being made into a black one, even though it supposedly started in China. And what is happening is that they're still playing that from the if it ain't broke, don't fix it playbook, right? Where they're playing white people like a cheap violin. So they, the elitists, and the governments they own have to keep up the pretense a little bit longer, but very soon the trap will be fully sprung and they won't even have to pretend anymore. It's pretty close to that already, which I imagine will come as great relief to those in power, because it has to be exhausting to even have to pretend like you give a damn. That has to truly be exhausting to them. Let me ask you a question. Are you disappointed with elected officials and politicians who sell you out? Why? I mean, if you are, then why are you disappointed? I, for one, am never disappointed or surprised when they act in their own interest and in the interest of their owners and go out of their way to do things that are completely against the will, not to mention the benefit of common people. I'm not surprised by it whatsoever. As a matter of fact, it only surprises me when they don't do that, which is pretty much never. But to be disappointed, here's the thing. To be disappointed, one must first have some kind of an expectation that the situation has the possibility of developing a certain way. If my expectations were that politicians and those in power would do anything that's not in their own interest, or to do anything that's not in the interest of their owners, then I am opening myself wide up for a lifetime of disappointment and anger. There's a man, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, named Vic Debatetto, has a YouTube channel. He recently went viral for a rant he did. And sure, when it went viral, all the commentators far and wide were singing his praises, and people, just loved his expletive, latent, red-faced rant and verbalized the anger and frustration of those, for those of us who are out here and we're not members of the elite class, right? I mean, he was going off. But here's the thing. I didn't cheer, nor did I share in that whole thing. And not because of anything personal against the individual, but because what I saw for what it was. It was a human being in an echo chamber, albeit a large echo chamber, yelling at the top of his lungs, and the only ones listening were those within the chamber. Notice I said listened to, not heard, because I'm sure that many people in positions of power will hear his viral rant. I have no doubt that some will even seem to address it directly, but I submit that those in positions of power and authority will only hear him and not listen to him. There's a world of difference between hearing something and listening to it. Presently, as I'm doing this, the dishwasher's running, and I hear my wife in the office, and she's doing whatever it is that she's doing. I can hear them, but I'm not listening to them, not listening to either one. Now, this is a fun fact. Did you know that a person can literally hear hundreds of separate things at one time, but a person can only listen to one thing at a time? You can hear all kinds of stuff. You can hear a dog barking in the background. If you take a moment, even right now, you can hear like different things happening in the background, whether it's a car going down the road or something, like I said, a dishwasher running in the house, whatever. But if you're listening to this is all you can listen to. And if you stop for one moment to listen to something else, then I will just become background noise. You won't be able to listen to what I'm saying. You'll hear me, but you won't be able to listen. So if a politician is in their office and 100,000 protesters are outside chanting to be treated fairly, while their one corporate donor is inside the office, right, sitting right in front of them, and they're in direct opposition to what the people outside are protesting, and that donor has the ear of the politician or the person in power, who are they going to listen to? And who are they going to hear? They're going to hear the people outside, but they're going to listen to that one single donor. And whoever they're listening to is the one who's going to get what it is that they're asking for or demanding. Okay. Even if it is in direct opposition to the 100,000 people who are standing outside that window or outside. So they hear us all the time, but they do not listen. And it's a hard pill to swallow. But there's no way, in my opinion, to even make them listen. You don't have the power, you don't have the money to make them listen. They will listen to the people who are putting money in their pockets. The power of this system, or the strategy of any abuser, is to convince the one that they're abusing that there's no alternative for them outside the system of abuse that to which they've become accustomed. However, a shift in consciousness and a shift in paradigm can show a person that they indeed not only have an alternative, but they may in fact have several options that they may never have considered. The present game the Democratic Party plays with progressives is on putting a doddering old man, and I'm talking about Biden, is putting a doddering old man, one who obviously has issues with dementia and who historically has been a mouthpiece and a hack for banks, corporations, and big business. And they're saying to those who clearly see him for the empty suit he is, that either you fall in line and put your support behind him, or you'll end up with Trump for another 4 years. Therefore, you have no choice but to choose that devil as opposed to our devil. But there is a choice. You can say, I choose neither. The immediate response to that is, Well, if in choosing neither, then that still means you're choosing Trump. Or that, well, there's, when everything goes to hell, then you have no right to complain. You know, all the typical BS that is used to keep us invested in a system in which we receive no appreciable returns. Now, number one, this isn't something to prop up Trump. What I'm saying is that the choices that we are offered, or the choice that is being offered, is no choice. You know, for us, it's either their devil or our devil, but they're both devils. So what difference? There is a choice. And see, the only way for these arguments to hold any kind of water is for one to be connected to the system and seeking anything from it. They are very careful not to let you know or to even suspect that there actually is another alternative. And there is another alternative. Separation. When separated from the system, nothing that happens any longer applies to you. Therefore, the effects upon you are negligible. I often use the example of leaving a job. Once you have established in your mind that you're leaving, anything in terms of policy, actions within the company, working environment, and so on become less and less of a concern to you. Yes, while you're preparing for your last day, you still need to show up to work on time, put in your day's work, and so on. But you know the deal, those of you who have experienced it. Not only does it make the job seem different to you, but it becomes more tolerable because you know you're leaving. And so anything that happens there doesn't really matter to you. You can hear that they're building a new break room for the employees or a new gym. Good for them. You don't care. You're leaving. They changed the lunch hour from an hour to a half an hour. Wow, that's pretty messed up. But I'm out of here anyway, so what do I care? They're giving everyone a $3 raise. That's great. For the people who are still here, I'm out. And so it goes. Without the carrot before your face and without the imagined ties to the company, there's basically nothing that they can do to you. Even if they are trying to make you miserable before you leave, it will have little effect on you. One important thing here is, though, that anything of this nature that a person's planning to do, you should keep close to the chest. In other words, don't walk around broadcasting, I'm leaving, I'm leaving. That goes for any abusive relationship. When you decide you're done and you make your plans quietly and unassumingly, then one day out of the blue, people are going to look around and they're going to say, hey, where did so-and-so go? I didn't even realize they were gone. That's how you do it. Quietly and unassumingly. The main takeaway is that we have been conditioned through centuries of training that this is the only situation we have and that we should dedicate our time, energy, and effort into working on it, working within it, and working to fix it or improve it. While in reality, the energy vampires who design the system and those who benefit from it are doing nothing but draining our precious energy and using it to perpetuate the system which enslaves us. And all energy, whether positive or negative, is the same to them. It's all energy. And we need to stop giving it to them. We need to let go of the present system and what we have been lulled into believing we have a chance to glean from it, and to turn toward our own people, ourselves, and leave this toxic situation to those who desire to swim in it and eventually drown in it. Our energy needs to be put positively toward our people and building our community, whether physically and or spiritually. We need to build ourselves and each other up. And so it is for this edition of the Drapetomaniac Podcast. This is Ayapo Yapa, the HDIC, the head Drapetomaniac in charge, and I want to thank you for listening. And as always, brothers and sisters, I will see you on the run.
And thank you again for listening to the Drapetomaniac Podcast. Tune in next week at doiamedia.com. DOEAIAMEDIA And again, we'll catch you on the run. Peace.